Hi, class. I'm here to walk through the rest of the advertising process with you. So you have everything you need to turn your paper in. It's due a week later than normally scheduled. It's due March 30th. You're still uploading it to Canvas. It's due still at class time, which is 11 o'clock. So we've been through most everything that you need for your assignment, and with the Canvas support page, you've got a lot of stuff that you can be reading and plowing through. Hopefully you've been going through that already. I thought what I would do here is start from the beginning, go through the advertising process again. I'll do it kind of quickly here since we've been through it before. You can stop anytime, of course, and replay this, and then I'll go a little bit slower through some of the new parts. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. This is hosted in a threaded discussion for that reason. So let's just recap and talk about what the advertising process is. So as you know, I kind of like to start at the beginning. We are in advertising class, and we've been through a lot of topics already in class, but what we're working on right now is the advertising process. And that means we're getting ready to deliver a message. So that's the core of advertising. There's an advertiser that has a message that they need to deliver to the target audience. That message becomes the ad, the advertisement. So when you see an ad on TV, there's a lot that happens to prepare for that ad, and that's what we're learning right now. What are the steps to get an ad so that the target audience sees it? So the core of that strategy is delivering the right message at the right time to the right people. And we call that time, place, circumstance. Your book even calls it that too. So if you have any desire to have more information about this, you can always look this up in your textbook too. The general idea behind time, place, circumstance is that we're trying to think about what the target is doing and thinking about that makes the best time to tell them that we exist. For your assignment, the we is Marin Bikes, and specifically the Fairfax one. So I'll try to put all this in context of Marin Bikes and the Fairfax one. So you want to think about what are commuters, bike commuters, what are they thinking about when they're thinking about things related to us? What does that mean? That means, well, they're going to be riding their bike to work. So when are they thinking about riding their bike to work? Is it while they're checking the weather a day or two before? Is it when they're looking at navigation apps? Is it when they're packing their backpack or their bags? So we want to deliver a message when they're in that frame of mind of thinking about that thing that we provide to them, a commuting bike and a commuting experience. So that's kind of the best time. The T there is the time refers to the best time to deliver a message to the target audience is when they're thinking about the whole world around our product. The place refers to where our ad is going to appear. So we're talking about media types and media vehicles. Again, all this is in your notes already. I'm just repeating it quickly. Media type is like radio, television, newspapers, magazines, internet, and outdoor. Those are types. And the media vehicle is that specific entity. So the specific magazine, maybe it's Newsweek, the specific radio station, KXCV, a specific television show, the Super Bowl, right? That would be the media vehicle examples. So we're going to be thinking about what media the target is consuming when they're thinking about this whole world that we are involved in, which is commuting to work. And then the circumstance is kind of those things together. What's going on with the target at the time we're going to be delivering that message? So again, what we're trying to do in advertising is deliver the right message to the right people at the right time. So that's what we're getting ready to do here. You already do this naturally when you're deciding how to speak to friends, how to speak to teachers, how to speak to your parents. You already kind of naturally think through the best time, place, and circumstance to deliver messages, especially the really important ones. So we do this in advertising the same way we do it as humans, basically. So again, the advertising process is some steps. So the first thing we need to do before we can even think about an advertisement is we have to know our client. We always take this from the perspective of we're an ad agency and we have a client. In this case, our client is Marin Bikes. So we need to know what we can about Marin Bikes and we need to know what we can about its products. We also need to know about the target audience, and our target audience is going to be people who commute on bikes. We need to then learn about and choose appropriate media. I'm going to be giving you your media for the assignment, so there's a couple things that happen when we're learning this in a class setting. I tell you how we do it in the real world, and then I also tell you how you're going to do it for your assignment. So for your assignment, I'm giving you your target and I'm going to be giving you your media. But what we do if we're doing this for a living is we're going to consider a lot of different media options. Should we even run an ad on the Super Bowl? Does it make sense for us? Should we run an ad in billboards? Maybe billboards would be really great because it's commuting, right? So that could be perfect. So when we do this for a living, we consider all the different media options. We choose the best. For your assignment, I'm giving you those choices, and you're going to be explaining in your paper why those choices make sense. That's a future paper, actually. Your current paper is only steps 1 and 2. So if we have really good message that really resonates with the right time, place, circumstance, then we're doing steps 3A and B at the same time. B would be the creative process, which is the message itself. We have a really good message, we're delivering it right into that exact C circumstance. And this is the example that I showed you in class about the garlic sauce, right? I mean, that's just perfect, where you can see that the media decision and the creative decision, that they work together. So that's just the example of how great advertising can be if those two things are done at the same time. And then going along with the advertising process, once all of those important steps are done, then we can actually build the ads. And that means if you're a videographer, you're going to be getting the assignment, you're going to be choosing the actors, you're going to be going through storyboards, and you're going to get down to the nitty gritty of making it. Maybe if you're a designer, you might be working on print or billboards. You're going to be getting all of the photographs and art materials that you need, the specs for the ads and all of that. So that's a huge job in and of itself. And then we launch the ads. That means that they are going to appear on the TV show. They're going to appear in the magazines. They're going to appear on the billboards. And then we measure effectiveness. And I think you might have problems seeing that last thing here and this step, but we've covered this in class. Sorry about that. Step 6 says measure effectiveness. Again, this should already be in your notes. We're not going to even do that in class, but I like to mention it because advertisers like to know if their ads worked, and usually they want to see that their ad did something, like maybe their ad led to some sales, maybe their ad led to some people coming in the showroom to look at the bike. So we try to measure the effectiveness of our ads, and that way we can prove the value of our ad agency. So let's dive a little bit deeper into knowing your client and its products. This is where we'll look a little bit more at your actual assignment. So this is your client, Marin Bikes, and this is just a screenshot of your support page in Canvas. I'm going to be pulling in some windows like this to walk through some of this with you. So we're working on step 1, which is know the client and the product. So for your assignment, you are asked to get to know your client. And if you notice on the assignment sheet, here, let me pull it in this way. This is a little bit easier to see here. I have your step 2, or your step 1, know your client. I have it down here second, and I think you might remember I explained this in class because I just learned over the years that some people put off this assignment and they don't realize it takes a lot of time to do. And I found that I was getting papers where there was a lot more information about the company and the history, and then not enough about the target. So I just switched the order because if you're going to do your paper in order, it's really most important that you get to know your target audience. So I just switched those. But let's start with the step number 1, which is get to know your client, and that is Marin Bikes. So for your assignment, you're going to be asked to, and again, follow the bold outline of the paper. What you turn in for your assignment should mimic the assignment in terms of all those bold headers, just like our previous papers. So in this part of your paper, Marin Bikes company profile, I just want you to learn about the company and learn a little bit about its history. So you'll want to use the resources in your support page. I've linked to basically everything that you're going to need. So you want to use the Marin website, of course, and look through here and get to know the company, get to know what kinds of bikes it has. I even linked to some items here where you can, I link directly to the Marin story. That would be very useful for you just for a little bit of history. That's where you'll get that. I think if you look through events and advocacy, that's where you, and even Instagram and YouTube, that's where you tend to see some personality of the company. So I just like for you to know that they do things for their target audience. They're not just selling bikes, but they have events, they have activities to get their target audience together. So I thought the more of these events that you saw, the more you'd start to get to know what bikers are really like, or cyclists, I should say, are really like. And if you look through like this advocacy section, you'll get a good idea of kind of the personality of the company, what they stand for, and those things are all important. So these are some things that you'll want to mention a little bit in the company overview. Now, the company overview, some of you, gosh, you could probably write a 5-page paper just in this one section, and that's not the intent at all. But I just want you to pull some important highlights about the company, its products, the range of products, a little bit of its history, a little bit of its personality, and just put it together in this part of the paper. It's probably going to be maybe a page. Some of you'll have 2 pages, no problem. Some of you'll have a hard time keeping it to 2 pages, but if you have it at about a page and you include the good elements, you're probably on the right track. The next part of getting to know your client is to really start diving into the products. This part right here is not intended to be about products so much as it is about everything else. I've pulled out products and I give it its own section to give you the hint, I guess, that you need to dive into the products. So I have that as a separate section. Again, this might be a page. And again, some of you might have a hard time keeping this section to 2 pages, but you should know that you want to get to know the products, and especially that Fairfax one. So in this portion of your paper, you want to be looking through the website, looking through the different types of models. I think a good policy is to always count. That's called quantify, to count things like how many different mountain bikes do they have? How many different styles of mountain bikes do they have? How many different styles of pavement bikes do they have? What's an e-bike and how many do they have? And what do they have for kids? So when you're talking about the products and giving an overview of it, I think it's always nice to give some numbers, and that helps get the size of your company. Like if they only sell 2 different models of bikes, that's different than if they sell 20 or 50 different models of bikes. So counting those things is important. Hint, hint, include some counts of their products in your paper. So your focus is going to be that Fairfax one. So you want to make sure that in this products area that you're really diving into the Fairfax one. So this is where you're going to use material from this portion of the website, but you're also going to use material from that handout that we read in class. Remember that? I printed out and handed out in class this wire cutter story. And in class, we sat and read this story. I gave you a little bit of an abbreviated version than what I'm linking to here now because I took off all of the other commuter bikes that Wirecutter looked at. But remember that when we read this in class, I was encouraging you to write on that paper next to different pieces of information that this article provides. I was encouraging you to write like a T next to anything that relates to the target and a P next to anything that relates to the product. So go back to your notes from that day, find the printout of this article, and anything that has a P next to it about the product, you can use that in the product portion of your paper. And then anything, of course, that has a T next to it for Target, we'll get to that because it's the second portion of your paper. So you want to describe the products here, but be sure that you're going into that Fairfax 1 detail because that's your focus for this assignment. And next you want to talk about the price range. So the Wirecutter article talked a little bit about price, and of course your website talks about price too. So what I recommend that you do is provide an indication of the price range across many of the bikes that Marin sells, but also provide the cost of what that Fairfax 1 is. So give a big picture and then talk about the Fairfax 1 also. What you're trying to do is get an indication of where your product falls price-wise. Like, is this a cheap bike or is it an expensive bike? And I don't mean for you personally, I mean for commuters. And that's where the Wirecutter article is going to help a lot because they're looking at commuting bikes. So use some of the bikes in that article, the linked article, where not the printed one because I cut some material off. But look in that linked article. When I say linked, I mean linked from the Canvas side. I just clicked on it. And see the prices of some of those other commuter bikes in there. That way you will have a good idea of where Marin stands in terms of a price range. It's important for you to understand that so that you don't just think that this is a really expensive bike based on your own version of what is cheap and what is expensive. We care about what the target audience thinks is cheap and expensive. So use that Wirecutter story to help you put that in place. This part of your paper should be explaining that too. It should be explaining where Marin fits in terms of the price of commuting bikes. So moving along to the next part of this paper is place, and that means I want you to explain where those bikes are available for sale. So, you're going to mention dealers, of course. I've linked to that from your support page. It's in right here, dealer locations. So what that means is that Marin Bikes is sold through biking stores. So when you look at this page, first of all, you get a geographic area of where Marin is. Clearly, they're out in California, so they're West Coast. If you start clicking on some of these, or even putting your mouse over them, you get an idea of where these bikes are sold. Like this is Robbie's Bicycle, Bison Bikes, Bob's Cycle, Breakaway Bikes. The reason I'm doing this is to give you the idea that this bike is sold not just at Marin stores, but at bike stores that sell a variety of different brands. So in this section of your paper, where you're talking about place, this means where are the bikes sold? So where can customers find these bikes? So that's what you're writing about. So you want to quantify. So you want to count the dealers here. Just count them. If you have to zoom in, go ahead and zoom in because numbers are good. Are the bikes available at 2 bike shops or are the bikes available at 200 bike shops? Makes a difference. So you want to use numbers. And you want to also mention, of course, bikes are available, are they available to be purchased online, right? Can somebody purchase this online? So this is what this section is for here in your paper.